Hi there, Scorpio. Welcome to your end of September 2025. My chair squeaking. Tarot update. Serena here. Ooh. Yeah. How was that lunar eclipse in Pisces for you? Yep. I can just imagine how it might be for some people, but it could be a good thing. Okay. All right. I get it. I get it. The heart of the matter is the Four of Wands. This is a card of happy, joyful, domestic bliss. It could be a marriage, a family, but it's with wands, it's like this sense of freedom within that type of environment. It could be a new home that you've bought. And when you buy a new home or maybe your first home or something like that, I mean, I don't have a home. I mean, I don't have I rent, but I imagine that when you buy a home, your first home, there's an excitement about that sense of autonomy, that sense of, that sense of freedom, but it's within that domestic sphere. So that kind of feeling, I mean, because a lot of times people kind of shy away from that type of like the home life because they feel like it's confining, like it's keeping them trapped. And yet there can be freedom within it as well. In the past position, we have the Queen of Pentacles. This is a card of enjoying being the queen of your castle. Yes, even the male Scorpio is the queen of your castle. But the queen, we're not talking about gender here. We're talking about sometimes it can be gender, but I mean, we're talking about the energy behind it. The queen represents the water element. The water is very nourishing and, like nurturing as well as feeling into things. You're a water sign too. Pentacles is earth energy, so it's the material things in life, and we're pouring energy into those material things like a home. We're taking those things that we look at as inanimate objects and we're making something, we're kind of imbuing them with healing energy or whatever you want to call it. And that's kind of what the home represents. It's like this place that you go to recharge, that it's your personal space and that kind of thing, and all of the comforts of the home. So this suggests to me someone maybe who has been settling into that life, maybe a stay-at-home parent, that kind of thing. The higher message is the Seven of Wands, and it's kind of like a defensive posture. The person feels like they have to protect themselves from attack. Maybe it's criticism. Somebody criticizing how you're doing things in the home, how you're raising your children, how you keep house, how you cook. And all of a sudden, that domestic bliss isn't so blissful anymore. We have the card that crosses you as the Tower card of this. But it's interesting now that I think about it as a challenge card because it kind of blocks this energy of the happy home. So I don't really think that this has been fully kind of activated, meaning that it may be kind of like, what do they call it when, the gasket before it explodes, that kind of thing, where the pressure is building up. Actually, the Tower moment, when we talk about that in the tarot and in life, can be a release, can be like, something has to give. The powder keg, yeah, it's like this big explosion, but then it's like everything comes out and there's a sense of release. So if somebody has been feeling like they've been keeping everything, inside, that can be that pressure building. Yeah, so like the pressure building. If it hasn't already happened, because I was talking about that lunar eclipse in Pisces, and one of the things about that is it happened in your fifth house, because it was fellow water sign, and that's the house of love. And that can be, you have a lunar eclipse, it can eclipse out some kind of person. But it's, when you talk about love, I mean, this could be even within a current marriage, or you have some kind of major insight about the love that you feel, because Scorpio is a fixed water sign. So your emotions can be very stubborn, and they're also very extreme as far as I'm concerned. I feel like there's like love-hate types of polarities happening, the love-hate type of thing with Scorpio, like no gray area, like black and white. And so when you're loving someone, even if they've betrayed you, it's very hard to shift into indifference or neutrality. That's the thing. So it gets to a certain point where you're like, okay, I'm indifferent to that person. That's kind of what the eclipse energy would be like. They're out of my life completely. But then you might be obsessed with them before, that kind of thing. But it might have been like a blessing if you finally were able to release your feelings for somebody, because it might have kept you from new love. Now, I'm assuming that with the Four of Wands, there are people that are still married to someone. But even if you're still married, if you take the emotional attachment to that person out of the equation, it makes it easier to move on with your life too. What's coming in is a Knight of Wands. This is more of a bold kind of a vibe. This card is connected to Sagittarius. I connect it to Aries. But when I think of, the warrior energy of Aries, so I do think of, like in terms of individuals, it can be sometimes a younger person because it's a knight, not a king, but it can be a youthful energy. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes it can be an immature energy, but it could be youthful, and that means that person, even if they're older than you and they're very youthful, and that they're not necessarily attached to relationships the way that, they're not like, they might be commitment phobic, in other words. They're interested more in their freedom than anything else. But just something within yourself, I think it's really kind of the truth. I think about Sag, and I think about the warrior for truth. So no matter what comes out, what the Tower represents, you can feel the sense of like, I'm going to let the chips fall where they may. I'm not going to keep myself in this state of having to feel like I'm at fault, that somebody else, like I'm thinking of the worst case scenario for a Scorpio person, finding out that your partner cheated. Probably the worst case scenario, or if you get left for somebody else, that sense of abandonment. But thinking that there's something wrong with you. This is very confident, brash, kind of cocky energy, Knight of Wands. This is a card of grief. This is a card of mourning the loss of something. And again, this is a process. I mean, it can simply be that at one time something was joyous and it turned into something that felt very combative or something like that. And you have to embrace that current reality to be able to move on, because it, the what you thought was a promise of having joy within the family and having that kind of a life, sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But being stuck in a place where you aren't able to feel like you can move on because you still have a piece of your heart with that other person, that's not what you're looking for. So the Tower, but accepting that release, not fighting against it. And that's what they always say about eclipses, is that if people fight against it, they create that resistance that can lead to the change that when you look back a year from now, you go, yeah, I totally get it, and I'm so glad that that happened. I picked an additional card, the Fool card. Absolutely new beginnings. Uncharted territory. Maybe it's like creating a life for yourself that is totally different from the norm even. This card is connected with the planet Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius. So it's kind of like unconventional. There's a kind of a conventional aspect to the Four of Wands or the Queen of Pentacles, kind of that typical domestic energy. You may be, let's say you are a parent and a single parent, and you take your child or children on the road in a van, or something like that, or doing some adventure, doing something different, and you don't even know where you're going. You just want to explore. That's the kind of energy of the Fool card, and it breaks you out of the old paradigm. Okay, that's what I have for you, Scorpio. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.